Irene Kim, so nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So this endorsement from Taylor Swift came after the first debate, like kind of almost right after. It was also a month earlier than her Biden endorsement in 2020. How big a deal was this statement from what you're seeing?
It's been really exciting. It's a huge deal. I mean, we've already seen the impact. I think it's been over 400,000 voter registration checks to vote.gov as soon as she posted the link on her story. And for us personally, we've seen an uptick on our socials, donations. We saw the spike immediately after she endorsed. So it's really exciting. And of course, for us, those of us who have already been doing the work, it's a big morale boost. And that goes a long way with something like this.
Do you have a sense of how much more money you've managed to fundraise because of this?
Yeah, and it's really fun because it's about $13,000. So Taylor's lucky number 13.
I love that you know that. What I thought was so interesting about it was, yes, it was an endorsement for Kamala Harris and for her running mate, who she says have issues that she thinks need defenders. But it was really that voter registration piece that I thought was important, because that was really a call to action for young people. And as you said, lots of people have taken her up on it. What do you make of her also just reminding people to register to vote?
I think it's so great that Taylor reminded people to register to vote, because a lot of us don't know what voting entails, honestly. We're not taught a lot of this in school, or if we are, we don't go into detail with it. And so even just the concept of registering to vote is new to a lot of folks, especially younger folks. So it's so great that she put the reminder out, and for a lot of people, it might be the first time they're hearing about it.
That's right. What does your group do in terms of resources and education for first-time voters?
Yeah, so I like to think we have a twofold approach, which is we have our social media. So over there, we have our resources. So that's connecting people with places they can check voter registration, find more research on candidates, things like that. And then we also have our political organizing side. So that's connecting people with text banking, phone banking, things like that. But for first-time voters, I think the most important thing is definitely just make it accessible. So we have a voter guide coming out in our newsletter, because I know even for me, it's like intimidating to go vote because I'm paranoid I'm going to check off the wrong box, or, it's a weird thing to do.
Yeah, it's stressful. It's stressful, and you don't do it like that often. I know that you are also calling unregistered student voters, and you're calling them in Wisconsin and Georgia. So are you also sort of targeting some of the swing states and the places where you want to see Kamala Harris really succeed and win?
Yeah, we are absolutely targeting swing state voters. With the way our voting system works, that's what we got to do. And the 2020 election came down to about 41,000 votes across 3 swing states. So that's definitely what we're focusing on. And we're really excited because we've already seen about 96,000 voter registration checks through fan out. So we're seeing the numbers. And so we're hoping to just keep reaching more people.
Why use, other than just liking her music, which is a big deal, and many people do, I do too, why use Taylor Swift as sort of the momentum behind this and the movement behind it? What is it that connects sort of the two things in your mind for you?
Well, now I want to know what your favorite song is, but for us, it's weird. I had to ask. It's because we're a community, and I think that's what started it all, because we're friends first. Being Swifties is what brought us together, but what keeps us here is that we care about each other and our friends, and doing something like this easily translated over because we already rallied around each other, whether it's someone having a hard time personally or tragedy just striking our community. People have always raised money through GoFundMe, doing the traditional $13 donations, things like that, or organizing on a wider scale. This has always been a thing, and I think it's really natural for us because, again, it's a community, and I think being a Swiftie is a big part of, I know, my identity, a lot of people's identities. So I think that's why this has come together, because it's just as big as, for me, I'm Korean American. I totally could have made sense to be part of Korean Americans perhaps. But for me, being a Swiftie is just as big a part of my life and my identity.
That's cool. Obviously, Donald Trump, responded to the endorsement. Donald Trump saying, quote, "She's a very liberal person. She seems to always endorse a Democrat. She'll probably pay a price for it in the marketplace." What do you make of that this could also turn people off of Taylor Swift? The fact that she has decided to become, quite political.
I would say she's always been political on this level of endorsing Democratic candidates. I'm not sure why anyone in the Republican Party is surprised by this. I guess maybe they were hoping. What us Swifties would like is if they would give us a number. So Taylor might do a sale on her site. So if they want to say how many sales they think she'll lose, we would like that. But I also just don't think that's true. A lot of us support Taylor, also are very liberal, and that's also why we've continued to be part of this fan base, is because Taylor's made her values very clear, and they align with our own values too. So it kind of speaks to what you were asking about, like, why did we organize around being Swifties? It's because we share a lot of values, and that speaks through from kind of like what Taylor cares about too, whether that's feminism, bodily autonomy, and like just standing up for what's right.
Well, I wish you luck. I think it's great just because it gets, as you said, young people and people involved in community and connected to politics, which is something I'm all about, whatever side you're on. Have a great election, Irene. Maybe we'll check in with you again. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
It was the same old show, the same tired playbook we've heard for years, with no plan on how he would address the needs of the American people. Well, folks, it's time to turn the page.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris was in swing state Pennsylvania this weekend, the state that could sway the whole U.S. presidential election this November. But swing states, so critical in every election, and this one as well, is where we will focus on our American Roundtable this week. With us today, Katie Simpson, senior Washington correspondent with us here at CBC News, and Anita Kumar, senior managing editor at Politico. Good to see you both. Appreciate doing this. Obviously, swing states always matter, and we'll get to that because they are so key in this election too. But I do want to start, Katie, with some comments that J.D. Vance made on CNN this morning, talking about this story out of Springfield, Ohio, and his claim, and President Trump's claim, that immigrants there are eating dogs and cats. It was a kind of wild interview between J.D. Vance and Dana Bash. What did you make of what he said, and particularly when she pressed for evidence that this is something that's reportedly happening?
Yeah, it doesn't matter that there's no credible evidence to support these claims other than online rumors. J.D. Vance is sticking with this. He's doubling down, leaning into it, and then attacking the media for asking questions and fact-checking him about it. This interview was quite contentious. He went on to say he defended talking about it, saying, listen, we are paying attention. We're listening to constituents. This is what constituents are telling us in this community. And if I have to create a story to bring attention to it, then he defended it. He described it as creating a story. Dana Bash, the host, then said, what do you mean creating, like, wait a minute there, creating a story, what are you talking about? To which he said, he sort of backtracked and sort of framed it as, we're creating the media narrative to put the attention of the challenges in this community. But again, this has been a long time part of the entire Trump campaign. He's been doing this for years, where he uses denigrating statements, denigrating types of language to pit Americans against newcomers in the U.S. He largely focuses on immigration, talking about people who cross into the U.S. illegally, but he is continuing to do this throughout the campaign, and this is another moment in that, even though, and he continues to stick with this plan, and you're hearing it from his vice presidential candidate there.
Yeah, initially talked about in the debate, which raised a lot of eyebrows. And again, to your point, Katie, J.D. Vance really doubling down on this idea to, I think, promote the idea, as you say, that immigration is causing this and is not good for the United States. Anita, feel free to weigh in there, but I do also want to ask you about Nevada, where Donald Trump was this weekend, a swing state where he spent a lot of time complaining about the last debate, and he says he's not going to do another one. What do you think they're thinking right now?
Yeah, well, it's really hard to tell what Donald Trump's going to do. As you know, he can change his mind at any moment. He has said that he's not going to do another debate, a third debate, as he calls it. Of course, there's only been one with Kamala Harris and then one, of course, in June with Joe Biden. You know, it's hard to think that he might change his mind at this point, mostly because he has actually come out and said, look, only the losers, people that lose the debates, lose the fights. I think that's what he had said. He was comparing this to a fight, actually won another debate. So he's claiming that he won. We see that most polls show that people that watch the debate believe Kamala Harris won. And he is basically saying, look, this is it. We are going to see that there is a vice presidential debate. It's scheduled for October 1. Anything can happen with that. But, really, I just go back to, like, did anyone see anything that was really that new? We did see a couple moments. Obviously, we were just talking about what's going on in Springfield or what the comments were. But a lot of people may not change their mind watching that debate. It was in many respects sort of what you expect from both of these people.
Katie, Kamala Harris says she would do another debate. I would imagine that's because they think she did well, that she did some damage to Donald Trump there.
Yeah, and it's all about creating contrast there, right? It's the Harris campaign thinks that creating that contrast where Kamala Harris sort of, shaped her view of Donald Trump or sort of tried to portray him as an unserious man. And some of the things that have sort of lived on from this debate are the comments about they're eating the pets, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dog, those kinds of things. So the Harris campaign likes that contrast there. But in terms of like the big picture, there are a few national polls that show that the Harris campaign may be experiencing a slight bump at this point. But one thing to keep in mind about national polls, it's a snapshot of how the American electorate is feeling right now. It's not necessarily a predictor of where things are going, only because in the United States, this election is going to come down to a handful of swing states and some undecided voters in those swing states, places like Pennsylvania, places like North Carolina, places like Michigan. And so that is where you really need to keep a close eye on how things are moving in those places.
Okay, and there are other moves sort of afoot that make you wonder whether there's momentum being lost by President Trump. Karl Rove, former senior advisor to President George W., wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal this past week calling the debate a train wreck for Trump. And you add to that, Anita, the Cheney endorsements, Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. And I saw this morning a bunch of Reaganites also saying they wouldn't want to see Trump. I mean, is this starting to become something that's more significant and could be very damaging potentially for President Trump's campaign?
Yeah, you also saw Alberto Gonzalez in Politico actually saying that he also was endorsing Kamala Harris. I think what's really interesting here at this point is it's not that they're just saying that they don't want to vote for Donald Trump. It's actually that they're saying, look, you can't just say your vote not for someone. You have to actually be for the other person or it doesn't matter. And that's sort of the difference that we're seeing with the Cheneys and Alberto Gonzalez and some other folks. You know, Liz Cheney says she's actually going to go out there and do some things for Kamala Harris. So whether that makes a difference, it might make a small difference. Of course, we are seeing from Democrats that are saying, great, it's good that, we have that endorsement, but they are remembering all those things that happened during the George W. Bush administration and in previous times and saying, look, we don't forgive for what they did in that time, but it's good that they're on board at this point. So we'll see. We didn't see the biggest one of all, though, which is George W. Bush, who says he's going to stay out of this race and not endorse.
Well, I would argue we did see the biggest endorsement, but it was Taylor Swift, not George W. But Katie, I mean, more seriously, we're going to talk to a Swiftie for Harris in the next hour. Those endorsements, whether they be Republicans who are walking away from Donald Trump or Taylor Swift, it's all about sort of making the tent bigger and bigger for Kamala Harris, right?
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, we spent some time in North Carolina this past week. We're going to have some stories that are going to be coming out on all the platforms on CBC News. And really, that is a state where the Democrats think they can make some gains. And we saw on the ground what that actually looks like and the effort that they're putting in. When Joe Biden was at the top of the ticket, it looked fairly clear that North Carolina was going to be a lock for Donald Trump. Now that Kamala Harris is at the top of the ticket, the stakes have really changed, and you're seeing a new level of enthusiasm among students. People were not engaged with what was going on in terms of getting registered to vote, that kind of thing. We went to a campus at the University of North Carolina. The people who run the tents to get people to come in and register to vote, they say they are so much busier than they had been previously. You're seeing population booms in some of the progressive parts of this state. And so all these little things are sort of connecting the dots, and it's making it's a really interesting contest in that state.
Katie Simpson, Anita Kumar, it is exciting down there right now. I mean, it always is, but it seems like it's newly exciting as we get closer to the election. Thank you both very much for spending part of your Sunday here.